Here I'm in the dark again. I'm working on a show print for my upcoming show group show with Larry Louie in the Exposure Photography Festival. And this is the first print, my first try at the first print. It's of two young boys in the Mae Sot Garbage Dump. They're Burmese refugee boys. Quite a complicated print. I thought it'd be an easy print, but as often happens, not so easy. There's 10 steps involved in this photograph. I'll just take it out of the fix. I'll go through them with you here. This Berger paper produces a wonderful warm tone. Okay. So, I made a number of test strips, which you can see buried all down through here. There was about 10 different test strips. And this is my little printing sheet where I kind of explain what I did step by step, because there's, like I said, there's 10 steps, so it takes quite a while. Two Brothers, Mae Sot Garbage Dump, September 2014, and it's 16 by 20. I'm using L Nikkor lens, a 50mm my friend Jack gave me. It's a Berger paper, fiber-based, glossy, Dectal 1:1 for 3 minutes. Okay, so the basic overall exposure was with a filter 1.5. I'm using this condenser enlarger, as you can see here. This is a condenser enlarger by Durst that I'm really using for the first time, and it gives added contrast. So that's why I'm using filter 1.5, because these nags are fairly contrasty. And I was printing with the Saunders before, which is that enlarger right there. And the Saunders is a diffusion enlarger with a multigrade head here, so you could adjust the filtration right there. It's not quite as stable as the Durst. As you can see, it shakes quite a bit. And the focusing goes in and out of focus fairly easy, whereas the Durst, this thing is solid. I've had it set on the same focus for about 4 days, and it hasn't shifted at all. I just slide it in the nags and it's razor sharp. So anyway, this condenser enlarger is much more contrasty than this Saunders enlarger. So I'm using filter 1.5 to make this print. So again, 125 seconds, filter 1.5 at f4 with the L Nikkor 50mm lens. I'm dodging this area right around the face. Let me just get this out a little bit so you can see it. I'm dodging this area around the eyes for about 15 seconds. It was a little bit too much in shadow. So that's the first part here. Then I'm dodging this whole area on the top, all this back here, the background and behind the boys, because that'll go completely black with this long exposure for the rest of the image. So I use a dodging tool that I cut out, which is this tool here. So that's the tool. So it actually, I dodge with this whole tool, so this whole background area is, you know, so I get detail in the background. So that dodge out of the 125 second exposure is about 80 or 90 seconds. Just dodge all that in there. Next step is I burn this left area. This area here on the left is problematic. They're in shadow inside this little hut they live in, little shack that the family lives in, and the background is brightly lit. So all this is daylight and highlights, and so I have to burn this whole area down in various degrees. First burn on that is a 60-second burn right through all this. So I use a card, burn all this down, boom, 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 60 seconds. Followed by a burn in this corner for 40 seconds. So I do an extra burn of 40 seconds in that corner. Then I do some small burns. I do a 20-second burn here in the background, because it's a little bit too much of a dodge. I just burn that down a bit. I burn the shirts here another 15 seconds. I burn this boy's face 20 seconds. I burn the lower part of the face an extra 30. So 20, and this gets 30 overall. So 20 and an extra 10. So this, then that's all my burns. Finally, I use another mask to burn in the highlight areas. There's a bunch of highlights throughout this background, and I need to burn that in. So I use this mask here, to burn in those highlights. All these areas in here, these little white areas, all burnt in. And that burn is 110 seconds. 110 seconds at f2.8. So I actually open it up one stop and give it 110 seconds. So that's a long burn. And then finally, there's these highlights in the background that are really distracting. You can you don't see them very much now because I burned them down, but there's white areas in the background. I use a piece of cardboard, because this is a really long burn, just to burn in those sections. So those sections are burned in for 200 seconds at f2.8, and I changed the filter from 1.5 to -1. So that those highlights go kind of, instead of white, bright white, they go to sort of this kind of dark creamy color, which I don't really mind too much. I could burn them down right to blackness, but I think I'm just going to leave them that. They add a little bit of a three-dimensional feel to it. So that's my first attempt at this rather complicated negative. As you can see, it's a beautiful print. Beautiful, kind of hard to focus this camera. I'm using my Mark II to do this video. You have to hand focus it while holding onto the print. But these two boys, I like the negative. There's actually a fly on the boy's face on the left, and there's a dog. You can kind of see it in the background there. A dog walking in the background, kind of ominous, a black dog. I think it tells their story quite a bit. I asked the boy to lean into his brother. Originally the shot, they were a little farther apart, and I had him lead in, and took about 4 or 5 exposures. This was the best of the bunch.